The morning started like any other. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., the sound of the alarm pulling me from a peaceful sleep. The sun was just beginning to creep through the blinds, casting a soft glow across the room. I took a deep breath, already feeling the usual weight of the day ahead. It was a Monday, like every other Monday I had spent in the past 15 years working at this company. My name is Emily Harper, and today I would walk into the office like I had done every day before. For 15 years, this place had been my life. I had climbed the corporate ladder, sacrificing my time, my energy, and many personal moments for this company. I had watched colleagues come and go, but I had always been there, steadfast, dependable, reliable. I prided myself on being the go-to person, the one they could count on to solve problems, lead projects, and keep things running smoothly. It was my identity. But this morning felt different. As I walked through the familiar glass doors of the building, something hung in the air, an unfamiliar tension. The usual rush of people, the greetings and chatter, were absent. The office was quieter than usual. Colleagues passed me with glances that were too quick, too awkward. Some looked as if they were avoiding me. Others simply seemed to be in their own worlds, distracted and distant. A knot began to form in my stomach. I tried to ignore it, but the unease was undeniable. I sat down at my desk, opened my computer, and tried to push the feeling away. But the usual routine didn't feel the same. I found it harder to focus on my emails, to respond to messages. I felt disconnected. The clock ticked slowly, the seconds dragging, and the heavy feeling only grew. Then, at 10:30 a.m., I received the call. Richard's name flashed on my phone. Richard Clark, my manager, the man who had been with the company longer than I had. We had worked closely over the years, and he had always seemed like a mentor. But today, when his name appeared, I felt a chill run down my spine. The phone call had become rare, especially on a Monday. "Emily," he said, his voice calm, but with an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite place. "Can you come to my office?" I felt a tightness in my chest. My gut told me this wasn't just about a new project or something routine. Something was wrong. I grabbed my bag and made my way to his office, each step heavier than the last. As I stood outside his door, I could hear the hum of the office behind me. The noise of the workplace had always been a comfort, but today it was suffocating. I knocked softly and entered. Richard was sitting behind his desk, his eyes tired, his expression unreadable. He didn't greet me the way he usually did. He just motioned for me to sit. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but cold, "I need to let you know that the company is restructuring. Your position has been eliminated. We are letting you go." The words hit me harder than I could have imagined. 15 years of my life, gone in an instant. I had always imagined that if this day ever came, I would feel a sense of closure, or that I would leave on my own terms. But this felt like a betrayal. I felt my chest tighten, my throat constricting, and for a moment, I was speechless. Richard continued talking, explaining the severance package, the transition, the logistics, but it all sounded muffled. I couldn't focus on what he was saying. I had been in the trenches for years, always giving my best, and now, after all that, I was being shown the door. I didn't let my emotions show, though. I remained calm, despite the whirlwind in my mind. I nodded as he spoke, but the words felt foreign. When he finished, I stood up, grabbed my things from my desk, photos, my mug, a few personal items, and walked out. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the weight of my resignation heavier with every step. As I passed my colleagues, some nodded, others whispered in hushed tones. But no one stopped to ask if I was okay. No one offered me any words of comfort. I made my way to the exit, and once I was outside, I felt the floodgates open. The tears came, but I didn't let them fall. Instead, I stood there, taking a deep breath, looking at the city around me. This was it. 15 years. Gone. But as I stood there, something else began to stir within me. There was no time for self-pity. There was no time for regret. I had spent too many years giving my all to something that wasn't mine. Too many years defining myself by my job. I wasn't just Emily Harper, the employee. I was more than that. I had been preparing for this moment, even if I hadn't fully realized it at the time. The last few months had been a quiet preparation for what was to come. I had started to take evening classes in digital marketing, had worked on side projects, built a portfolio. I had been networking, connecting with people outside of my office, outside of my world. I had been slowly building a new future for myself, one where I was in control. The next few weeks were a blur. I didn't sit around feeling sorry for myself. I didn't give in to the fear of the unknown. I reached out to the contacts I had made. I sent emails, set up meetings, and started working on the business I had dreamed of for so long. It wasn't easy. There were sleepless nights, moments of doubt, and countless obstacles. But I knew I had no choice. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to waste it. It didn't take long before the opportunities began to roll in. A former client reached out to me for a freelance project. Another colleague offered me an advisory role in a startup. Soon, I was working for myself, building a consultancy focused on business strategy and digital marketing. The freedom was intoxicating. I set my own hours. I made my own decisions. I had become my own boss. Months went by, and my reputation grew. What they didn't expect, what no one expected, was how quickly I was able to bounce back. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And all the while, I never looked back. Then one day, I got a call. It was Richard. He asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, curious to see what he had to say after all this time. We met at a quiet cafe, and when he saw me, he looked surprised. Not just surprised by how well I was doing, but surprised that I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. "Emily," he began, his voice full of regret. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. And I have to admit, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect you to bounce back so quickly.
You've done so well."
I was wrong about you. I looked him in the eyes, calm and collected. "You didn't expect it, Richard, but I did. I've always known what I'm capable of. You just didn't see it." He sat back, visibly stunned by my response. "I'm sorry for how things ended. I didn't mean for it to go that way." I smiled softly. "It's okay. Sometimes, life shows you who you really are when you least expect it." And in that moment, I realized that getting fired had been the best thing that had ever happened to me. It wasn't the end of my career. It was the beginning of something far more fulfilling, something I had been too scared to pursue before. I had become the architect of my own future, and no one, no company, no person, could ever take that from me. The last few months had taught me one invaluable lesson. I am more than the job I do. I am the sum of my experiences, my decisions, and my resilience. I no longer needed validation from anyone else. I was in control. And as for Richard and the company that had let me go, they didn't expect my response. They didn't expect me to rise above their decision. But I did. I always knew I could.